all 7 of the island localities that have ever been brought to the United States that we know of. We have finally, as of last year, produced all of the 7 localities as pures. They're the foundation and the basis for everything that is dwarf and superdwarf retics. I'll let Clint handle why it is. These guys live almost from India to Australia. Indonesia is 17,000 islands. But each island is a little bit different. The ones on this archipelago are unique because of their placement, because of probably how the animals got there. If you go down the island chain, the further out you get and the smaller the islands are, the more unique they're probably gonna get over time. If you think of Sulawesi, which is where some of the largest retics in the world come from, but also epic in their chunky body build, deep lemon yellow heads, bold black patterns. The next island down is actually the largest in the archipelago, and that's Slayer Island. There are actually different looks from within Slayer Island. There's quite a bit of variety in both size and color. Those are definitely a dwarf. The next biggest, maybe not so circumstantially, is the Jampeyas. Jampeya is the original dwarf retic. They were actually discovered by the pet trade, and then the scientific community found out about them later. These were the original dwarfs, and when people got into the superdwarf stuff, they kind of cast these by the wayside. The first actual locality superdwarf retic to be imported and known would be the Coyotes. If the Coyotes are, let's say, the biggest of the superdwarfs, they're also the most colorful. They have ridiculously amazing reproductive potential. They really add a lot to different projects, and they're fairly readily available. Tombolongans, they are basically nature's superdwarf Sulawesi. They're very extreme looking. They have a different head shape, short nose, buggy eyes. Madus, they have probably the best firing up and down of any locality. They're almost blue when they fire up really good. They're like this beautiful blue-gray. Kalatoas, there's a lot of different looks. He's got the high saddle count and the busy pattern, and some of them have kind of a generic superdwarf look. Karampas have that super chaotic, sometimes connected like chain pattern, thick and thin blacks. Does anybody have any questions? They have skeletal differences. They have food preference differences. So it's not just skin deep. Like I was saying, Tombolongans have like chunky little French bulldog heads. The Jampeya, if you look at him, has like a thin coffin, almost like mamba shaped head. The temperaments are totally different. So if you're looking for, I would think for captivity, the ultimate would be a very sweet animal, but that eats all the time. Those are usually juxtapositions with wild caught snakes. You're looking for the Karampas. They eat every time. The Madus have very nice personality as well. Kalatoas differ. Usually Kalatoas are more reluctant to bite, but they like to run away. There's an old reputation that they were always very flighty. And I would concur most of the wild caught ones are. Captive breeding has chilled that out the more generations you go, but they like to run. The Slayers, they don't ever eat. They're super annoying. They're very frustrating. They like to eat birds. They also love to musk and poop on you a lot. They are not afraid to bluff bite, but I don't think they're super, inclined to want to like chomp down on you. But they're definitely the bitiest, poopiest, muskiest, and also biggest locality. The Tombolongans, honestly, I have complete opposites in my Tombolongans, even though they're all related, but it has to do with who raised them. So like all the ones that are raised by us are super sweet. The original animals I got to breed are my worst retics by far. They're literally named Shetty Kruger, is one of the male, and then Zach after Zach Nava. If any of you know him, you know how horrible of a person he is. I'm just kidding. The Coyotes seem to be good, but they probably have the highest food drive. They're crazy. Otherwise, their temperament is great. So once you get to working with the animals and stuff, they're awesome. I think probably like the mellowest and sweetest would be the Jamps and the Karampas. Most of them are great eaters. The Tombolongans and the Slayers, not so much. All the other ones are actually known for being really good starters and easy. Good question. Anyone else? Well, again, you have to realize when you say superdwarf, you're using like a market term. So if someone says this is a superdwarf and you're like, holy crap, that's 20 feet, they could literally be entirely wrong. They could be calling a different locality a Superdwarf or whatever. But among animals that I know are real Superdwarfs, and so I would only include in that Madu, Karampa, and Kalatoa. The biggest ones are probably 11.5 feet, but they're like terrible looking. They look like the big retic, super overfed. Almost all the wild caught stuff comes in at like 6.5 feet. If you feed them in an unhealthy manner, they can get artificially large. But a wild caught Kalatoa female should be between about 6.5 and 8.5 feet. The Coyotes are called Superdwarfs. I've seen Coyotes up to 13 feet, but they are a little bit bigger locality. Still though, the wild caught ones are never like that. They should probably be between like 8 and 11 feet as a big adult female. Males, typically a little bit smaller. The smallest is the more interesting question. We have females laying eggs at 875 grams with our first year Karampas. So pretty wild. Anyone else? All of these localities are pretty commonly kept and prevalent in the US if you look around. Like not all, there's definitely rarer and more common localities, but more than 50%, I would say, pure Superdwarfs are used for crossing projects. So you don't see a lot of pure babies available often. When you do, you should snag them up of any locality really. So they exist as adults, but there's non-breeding adults. I have a wild-caught Jamp female downstairs that I've been trying to breed for about 12 years and she's never given me an egg. Every year she produces follicles and reabsorbs and doesn't do anything. I would love it because we need another fresh bloodline of Jamps and there's no getting them anymore. This is also why we do things like Karampas, $7,500 for a female, $5,000 for a male, but we do $10,000 for a pair. So it's like half off of one of your Karampas just so that you'd be like, please breed them. I do an even more extreme one with our Kalatoas. They might be a little different this year, but for many years, it's been $4,500 for a female Kalatoa, right? $2,500 for a male. But if you buy a female for $4,500, give me $500 and I'll throw a male in the bag for you just to have the option to please make pures one day. So yeah, really, I'm definitely an advocate of breeding pures, especially with your females.